Ladies and gentlemen, every once in a while the world stops spinning, just for a moment, because something real happens, something that breaks through the noise, something that makes us re-examine what we thought we knew. Today, we talk about a woman, a global icon, a mother, a humanitarian, a voice for the voiceless. Angelina Jolie. Now imagine this. The same Angelina who graced red carpets and front pages for decades, quietly steps away from the spotlight and steps into something far more personal, something deeply spiritual, Islam, not a tabloid headline, not a movie role, but a personal journey, a transformation that came not with applause, but with questions, with judgment and with peace. Why would someone so powerful, so admired, take this path? But the truth is, it wasn't about power. It wasn't about fame. It wasn't even about religion as the world sees it. It was about purpose. It was about the silence after the applause, the questions that success couldn't answer, the moments alone in refugee camps or war zones when the soul whispered, "There's something more." And so she listened, she studied, she asked. She sat in mosques anonymously, far from the cameras, and what she found wasn't control, it wasn't oppression. It was peace, not peace that comes from luxury, but peace that comes from surrender, a word that Islam, at its root, truly means. And yes, it shocked the world. Friends distanced themselves. Critics sharpened their tongues. Headlines screamed louder than the truth. But she stood still, with a Quran in her hand and a fire in her heart, not to convert others, but to live authentically. She found beauty in the call to prayer, strength in modesty, discipline in fasting, and above all, a new sense of belonging, not to a religion defined by media, but to a faith defined by mercy, justice, and love. Angelina Jolie, a global icon known for her humanitarian work and cinematic legacy, began a personal journey that took her far from the glitz of Hollywood. After years of witnessing war, suffering, and resilience during her UN missions, something within her began to shift. The questions that fame couldn't answer started to echo louder in her heart. Behind the cameras and red carpets, she longed for deeper meaning, a connection that transcended material success. This quiet search eventually led her to Islam, not through force or pressure, but through genuine curiosity and spiritual longing. She read, observed, and reflected. Slowly, she found herself drawn to the teachings of peace, discipline, and surrender found in the faith. Her decision wasn't a dramatic conversion moment, but a gradual awakening to something she had felt around her for years while working in Muslim communities. As news of her acceptance of Islam spread, the world reacted just as you might expect, loudly and with mixed emotions. Some applauded her courage, others condemned her choice, and many questioned whether it was real. People who once admired her from afar suddenly distanced themselves. The same media that once celebrated her now ran sensational headlines. But through it all, Angelina remained composed. She didn't shout back. She didn't defend every rumor. She simply lived her truth. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was strength. In an age where everyone feels the need to explain or justify, she chose stillness. She understood that faith is personal, not performative. And by standing firm in her decision, she inspired others to examine their own lives, not necessarily to convert, but to question what it really means to live with integrity and authenticity. Through Islam, Angelina found what years of worldly success couldn't offer: peace. Real, soul, deep peace. The 5 daily prayers gave her rhythm and grounding. Modesty, often misunderstood by the world, became an expression of self-respect and humility. Fasting during Ramadan taught her restraint, empathy, and gratitude. She no longer sought validation from flashing cameras or magazine covers. Her sense of worth came from her connection with God. Islam didn't erase her identity, it refined it. She was still Angelina, the mother, the activist, the artist. But now there was a calmness in her, a light that came not from the spotlight, but from within. The transformation wasn't about abandoning who she was, but about becoming who she was always meant to be. Angelina Jolie, a name that has echoed across red carpets and war zones alike, began a journey far beyond what most could imagine. Her life, marked by fame, humanitarian service, and personal evolution, took an unexpected turn, one rooted not in image or influence, but in a profound spiritual search. For years, she had stood at the intersection of glamour and grief, witnessing firsthand the brokenness of humanity in refugee camps, conflict zones, and forgotten corners of the world. In those places, she didn't just see suffering. She also saw strength, dignity, and faith, particularly within Muslim communities. Over time, the resilience and peace she observed in people who had so little yet seemed so centered began to leave a mark on her heart. This wasn't a conversion triggered by impulse or influenced by others. It wasn't about aligning with a culture or making a political statement. It was deeply personal. Away from the cameras, the headlines, and the Hollywood machine, Angelina quietly explored the teachings of Islam. She read the Quran, she asked questions. She spent time in reflection, sometimes in mosques, sometimes alone. What resonated with her wasn't just the theology or rituals, but the spiritual rhythm of the faith, the way it wove purpose into everyday life, from the way one speaks to the way one eats, prays, and treats others. In Islam, she found a structure that didn't limit her freedom, but guided her values. This discovery didn't happen overnight. It unfolded slowly, gently, in moments of silence and in conversations with herself. It was a journey of the soul, not for validation, but for peace. But peace rarely comes without noise. When word of her transformation surfaced, the world responded predictably, with shock, speculation, and even hostility. The media had a field day. Pundits debated her motives. Social media exploded with assumptions. For a world that consumes celebrity culture like entertainment, this wasn't just news. It was fuel for judgment. Friends became distant. Colleagues questioned her. Former admirers now saw her through a lens of suspicion. Many couldn't comprehend how someone who had it all would walk towards something they didn't understand. They wondered, why would a woman so free, so powerful, so iconic, willingly step into a faith often misrepresented in the West? But Angelina didn't offer explanations. She didn't go on talk shows to justify her choice. She didn't post long statements on social media to appease critics or clarify rumors. Instead, she remained still, dignified in her silence, powerful in her composure. She understood something many fail to, that faith is not a press release. It is not a performance. It is a deeply personal covenant between the heart and the Creator. In an age where everyone is expected to document, share, and explain, she chose to live her truth rather than narrate it. And that in itself was revolutionary. Her quiet strength served as a mirror for society, forcing people to confront their biases. Some softened, realizing that any faith isn't about conformity but connection. Others hardened, unwilling to accept that a woman they admired for years could embrace something they feared. But none of that altered her path. She didn't flinch. She didn't backtrack. Instead, she found solace in her prayer mat, in the calm of early morning supplications, and in the discipline of the 5 daily prayers. What others saw as restriction, she experienced as release. Islam, for Angelina, became more than a religion. It became a lens through which she viewed the world. The modesty she adopted wasn't about hiding. It was about honoring herself. The fasting she practiced during Ramadan wasn't starvation. It was spiritual clarity. The rituals were not burdens, they were blessings. Through them, she experienced the divine in the everyday. She discovered how presence can be sacred, how patience is strength, and how the act of surrender, so often mistaken for weakness, is, in fact, the greatest form of power. She no longer needed cameras to feel seen or applause to feel worthy. Her validation came from within, from her connection with God, and from the peace that no award or achievement had ever given her. This shift didn't erase who she was. It enriched her. She remained the strong, intelligent, compassionate woman the world had always known. But now there was a deeper calm in her, a silence that wasn't empty, but full of meaning. She found strength in vulnerability, courage in discipline, and clarity in submission to something far greater than herself. She became less reactive, more intentional. Her actions weren't about proving anything. They were about living sincerely. And those who looked closely could see that something had changed, not in her public image, but in her soul. Angelina Jolie's story, though not officially confirmed in real life, represents something universally human: the longing for purpose, the courage to seek truth, and the strength to follow it even when the world watches with confusion or disbelief. Whether or not someone shares her faith, the essence of her journey speaks to all, that true transformation doesn't need an audience. It just needs a heart brave enough to listen and a soul willing to change.